Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Royal Blue podcast. I'm your host, Chris Beesley. I'm joined by my colleague, Joe Thomas, and our regular guest, Gavin Buckland. I might be looking quite pensive at the moment. That's because we're using a new two-camera operation, and somebody, a traditionalist like myself, struggles with any sort of, technology. Exactly, I'm hearing myself coming through here in stereo. Better mute that one. So, yeah, we're live. And it's been quite the hectic week, hasn't it, Joe? Certainly started on Monday, a late finish for you there on transfer deadline day.
Transfer deadline day, yeah. I mean, I anticipated being up until the end of Monday and working into the early hours of Tuesday. I didn't anticipate that I'd be doing that on the Carlos Alcaraz deal. Like, I thought that would have been boxed off. I mean, Flamenco technically announced it on Friday. So I think we could all see, given the amount of time it took after that it was clearly a premature announcement. But yeah, I mean, it got messy and it felt quite needless, really. I don't know the full ins and outs of it, but I'm not quite sure how it took that late into the day. I don't think anyone really was expecting it from an Everton point of view. He had his medical on Sunday, and well, we all know what happened next. But he got over the line. Good signing, I think, for Everton. Someone with a bit of Premier League experience, 22, isn't he? South American, likes a bit of a scrap, knows where the back of the net is as well. So, I think we should probably have a new column on transfer market, shouldn't they? Goals, assists, and scraps he starts in front of the Gladys. And
wow. Remember it was that mass brawl, wasn't it? Was it the Argentinian Cup final?
There's been a few, I think, that he started. So, I mean, to be honest, I'm not against that. I think this is the side that could do with a little bit of bite in it, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, we've seen now how we've got people's backs up when Iliman Ndiaye flaps his wings like a seagull, haven't we? I mean, if that's the barometer for winding people up these days, and think of what we can do if we get inside people's heads with a controversial South American.
Yeah. Do you like a bit of that, Gav? Bit of needle.
I think so. Yeah, it's interesting to see the part going off on a tangent. The Premier League are looking, aren't they, about reviewing their yellow cards for
wing flapping,
inflaming the opposition supporters. It's just nonsense. Yeah, I think so. It's interesting. Somebody told somebody once about this. We say about making Goodison into a fortress and make all the players fearful of it. And somebody said that all the South American players love that. If they come to Goodison, that's what they want. That's what they want. That's the atmospheres that they look forward to. Yeah, exactly. If you come as a lot of visiting players love that atmosphere. If you come from abroad, but particularly South America, so you have to. It is funny. Yeah. Oh yeah. I like that. I think though they're trying to, in a sanitised game, they're trying to remove all that from the game, but you need that.
Yeah,
and the celebration thing is a nonsense as well. But yeah, I think it gives us a few other options. Again, showing. I was thinking about this when we spoke about whether they should get a striker or not. Is the one thing we learned from Moyes' first tenure is he's not necessarily a manager who appreciates building the team around a striker. Mm-hmm. He likes to build his team around that area of the pitch, doesn't he? In the midfield and in advanced areas and around a striker, and that gives us a few options. So in some respects, a typical Moyes signing, you would say. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And also a reflection, possibly, the delays about transfers, even short-term deals, can be enormously difficult things to sort out, can't they?
Yeah.
The players, family, all that type of thing. Where they're going to live. It's not just bring a player in and that's it. There's particularly from South America, it can be quite difficult. So maybe, but it was a bit. I think Flamengo were a bit fly, weren't they, on last Friday? But yeah, another option. A very sensible transfer window, I thought, from Everton.
Yeah,
and hopefully reflecting the way the club is run and operated under the Freakins, and with Moyes in charge, and with Howell there as well.
Yeah, it was just a bit of housekeeping here. Somebody's asked, is there a pre-game press conference today? Yeah, 1:45 at Finch Farm. Joe will be heading up there after that one, so look out for that one later this afternoon. Joe, I mean, when David Moyes came in, he was obviously very vocal about the reinforcements he felt at the time that the squad needed, but I guess a combination of difficulties with PSR and the market they were dealing in, plus Everton's dramatic upsurge in form, meant that Alcaraz was the only one through the door.
Yeah, I think it was a sensible window once you had the Leicester results,
yeah.
Because I think that was a game changer in a lot of ways for not just for the transfer window, but also for Everton's season. I think it wasn't just the win on Saturday, but it was the manner of victory, how emphatic it was, how clearly better Everton looked than the best placed rival from the bottom three. I think the squad is short. I think it is light. David Moyes wanted at least a striker, and they haven't got one. I can understand why he would want one. Look, we all really, really hope that Betto takes this opportunity now and builds on the brace that he scored the other day. He's going to have that chance because he is the only fit striker and will be for some time. But this idea of looking forward to the spring and getting the reinforcements in, I think we really have to be cautious about that because, Sean Dyche started to do this as things got difficult in October, November, and started to talk about the return of Yusuf Chermiti. Well, Chermiti's had some positive showings in Royal Blue towards the end of last season and in pre-season. But he's still a youngster who I think if Everton were in a much better situation now, we'd probably be looking to loan out to maybe the Championship or a European League if we could to get senior. He's still not scored a senior goal for Everton. Armando Broja, we know that he has shown glimpses of being a very talented striker. What we don't really know is if that talent has survived the numerous injuries that he's had over the last 2 or 3 years. Had some promising cameos, but of course his best one was against Wolves when Everton were already 4-0 up. I did think that he was beginning to show a little bit of promise. It was a shame with what happened to him. But again, he's someone that we probably can't put too much pressure on. And then again, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Now, I know the club put out a statement saying looking at weeks, and I know that hasn't required surgery. But look, there is, and I wrote this in a piece over the weekend, real concern about the length of time that's going to take. There is a hope and expectation he might be fit to play again this season, but anybody who thinks that he's going to walk back in at the end of March and all of a sudden be 100% match fit, well, we're going to have to look from his past to see that's not happening. So really, I think they are very reliant now on either Betto or finding another solution. Moyes is someone who, like he's spoken to me about, he thinks Ilman and I could lead the front line if needed, and they could probably do that with Alcaraz as well. But there is a lot of pressure on Betto. So I would have felt more comfortable with another striker coming in, certainly before Leicester. But then, like I say, a bit of a game changer. That was 9 points. If they'd have lost that game, you're looking at 3 points. All of a sudden, Leicester have 2 wins in a row. They have the positive momentum. Everton, you're looking around and thinking, were Brighton and Spurs just a new manager bounce? Instead, the whole thing's flipped, doesn't it? You've got a number of players there who've hit a little bit of form. You've got another clean sheet. You've got 4 goals. You've got 2 from a striker, 1 from attacking midfielder as well. It really opened up that chasm. And whilst I don't think anybody at Goodison or Finch Farm is getting complacent, and I think whilst it's easy for us to maybe start getting drawn to looking at clutch of teams just above Everton, I think very much Moyes and his staff around him are still looking below them, and that's where they're focusing their attention on. But because of that win and the manner of it, and also other games as well, Ipswich failing to beat Southampton felt like a very telling blow to them. Then all of a sudden, I can understand why they got to Monday and thought, if there isn't anything out there, then let's not spend money just purely for the sake of spending money. I think that becomes a sensible window. Now we've got to the end of it, so fingers crossed.
I mean, Gav, you said about that word, sensible. I've had a few comments here. I mean, Emery FC says morning Blues, Kevin Murphy, morning lads, but there's also some questions as well and comments. Terry Dactyl said, we need strikers, so we didn't sign a striker, so now we don't need one until the summer, apparently. But whereas Nash EFC says, no one below us really strengthened either, so I'm content with the business done. My opinion now is that we need to know one way or another on Failwell. But before we get on to Kevin Failwell or anything like that, on the transfer business and the lack of a striker, you comfortable?
Yeah, I think I said at the start of the show, Moyes he's a manager over the years, isn't he? Who has not been reliant on a striker, in terms of building a team around that. If you have a look at his record, particularly at Everton and at West Ham, is he likes to strengthen the areas around the striker. Where we've got NJ, Lindstrom and Alcaraz now, they're the types of areas that from attacking and goal scoring perspective, that's what he wants. I did something the other week, for 700 Premier League games. Mm-hmm. Who's the highest scorer of Premier League goals under Moyes?
The fact that I don't...
Is it 700 games? Tim Cahill.
Okay.
Still Tim Cahill, 56. Next highest, Jared Bowen. Who, he ended up playing
so neither out,
but all the top scoring players are all players who appeared in that that area of the pitch.
Yeah.
He's never been a manager who's placed his faith about having a striker who'll get you 10, 15 goals a
top
season.
goal scorer so far at Everton must be Ndiaye, mustn't it?
Yeah.
Again,
You know,
empowering the.
you know that. So he, in 08-09 when he had the striking crisis, he ended up playing two midfielders, Fellaini and Cahill up front. So if you have a look at his career, he's never had a goal scoring striker apart from Yakubu for one season in 07-08, and Yak only got 15 Premier League goals. So in that, and the same with West Ham, you had Antonio, who was converted right back playing up front. He's never been a manager to build his team round a striker, having that strength. You know, like somebody had a bit of Lukaku, say something like that. He likes to fill where he wants quality. Is that area around a striker and goal scoring capability, and you can see why Alcaraz perfectly fits into that strategy. And if you get an injured striker, he'll just run with it. He'll look at other options because I don't think it's that important to him. As I say, when he played Cahill up front in 08-09, and then Fellaini up front, who are both midfielders. So he'll just mix and match around there. You can imagine that he'd be comfortable playing, say, like Lindstrom. As a striker in and around, that area of the pitch, or maybe not play a striker at all. So I can see why, he hasn't bought one in the window. If one's not available, he'll just mix and match for the rest of the season. If Betto was injured, I think he's probably got maybe two options there already. So I'm not. It's typical Moyes this window.
Yeah,
I think if you look at his managerial history, what he's tried to do. But where he's prioritised, and prioritising a striker as your number one need is not really Moyes for me, and that's been exemplified in the window.
Yeah, we're getting a couple of contrasting views here, and in the comments, Wormy Spoons, who's been very vocal out there, says, "Don't care so much about a striker, but Broyle should have gone back." But whereas Jamie, the simple musician Loftus, says, Betto will flourish under Moyes with some guaranteed starts. His goals to games ratio was skewed by being mainly in the last 10 minutes of games. It was a massive moment for Betto as well, wasn't it, Joe?
Yeah, it really was. And that comment just then about his stats being skewed by the way in which he's been used is very, very true, because it's not just that. You look at some of the situations. One of the things that confused me in this season, especially again when Everton were really struggling for goals going into the winter, was how all of a sudden Deitch started to play Betto again alongside Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And that was something that he spent all of last season saying that he didn't believe would work, and effectively proved it a few times. I think Luton in the Luton in the league, I think it was the first time. I think there might have been another time, and it was used as well. It just clearly didn't work. And obviously it didn't work for Calvert-Lewin or for Betto. I think Beto's been unfortunate in the sense that he's had a few sliding doors moments that have gone against him. I think that he's clearly a player that kind of thrives on confidence. I think back to last season, and obviously we've got the derby coming up, haven't we? But I think at Anfield when 0-0, Everton 10 men, Konate drags him down. It really should have been a second yellow card, shouldn't it? It should have been 10 against 10. All of a sudden, Betto's running at a weaker defence, 0-0. You don't know what's going to happen. The agent of chaos there. And that might have kind of boosted him because he'd have had a real impact on a big game. I think about Bournemouth away when Everton equalised in the last minute, and it was Betto who came on, got that equaliser. But then Bournemouth went up the other end, scored for Seamus Coleman's own goal. And then I think about Southampton away, again, at a time when Everton were really crying out for someone to put the ball in the back of the net. He'd just come off that really emotional last-minute equaliser against Fulham, and then he comes on against Southampton, and that touch from that ball, to bring that ball over the top under control, and then the finish is sublime. It showed a quality that I don't think that we really have been able to see that Betto has. Whether it was a fluke or not, I don't know. Like, there is that kind of uncertainty around him. But that goal goes in off the back of the Fulham one, and all of a sudden Everton come away from Southampton, with a result. Again, I think it's another opportunity to change the narrative of his story at Everton. He's now going to get that, clearly, because he is the only fit recognised striker, and he comes off the back of 2 goals, so he's going to be given the benefit of the doubt now. And it'll be interesting to see whether or not he takes it. But I think now, for the first time since he joined Everton 18 months ago. Obviously, the jury is still out with him, and they've committed to a lot of money for him. For the first time, he probably has control of his own narrative, because it's difficult to see why Moyes would go for anybody other than him until he has a sustained run where he doesn't score or doesn't perform. So, for a player who I think had things turn out differently this month, may well have been either sold or loaned out to help pave the way for someone coming in for Everton and probably for Sean Dyche. He's ended the month really with the world at his feet. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not he can take advantage of it.
Yeah, some interesting comments here. Poor Sean Dyche is copping it here, Gav, from the viewers. I'll just give you a selection here because it's all about Betto. Dyche persisting with garbage tactic of lumping it up even to Betto.
Yeah.
Playing just showed how inept he was from an attacking point of view. Paul Tollerton says, made up with having Everton back. How did we put up with that dross under Dyche for so long? And then Emery FC, obviously regular contributor, she says, the problem with Betto is that he's had no coaching for nearly 2 years. Will improve massively under Moyes. I mean, that's pretty damning. But your thoughts on Betto and how we might thrive?
I think that's unfair about dross under Dyche for 2 years, considering that he wasn't pretty. He kept us up twice in very difficult circumstances on and off the pitch. I get the football wasn't great this season. I would agree to a point. So I disagree with that comment. Though there's an element of truth this season. As for I don't say coaching. It's just Moyes probably understands the strengths of players and has got more flexibility tactically than Dyche has, and so you saw that from the 2 balls that were put through for Betto last week. That's his strength, isn't it? Not playing like a Calvert-Lewin type striker with his back to goal, and he's playing with his back to goal. I mean, if you look at him, he's a well-built fella, isn't he? He should be able to hold. He's not as if he's slight, isn't he? He just can't do it. Yeah. He's all over the place, isn't he? He needs the ball to run on. So I wouldn't say he's not being coached last 2 years. He's just been played in the wrong way in the last 2 years. It helped last week that James Garner came back, who can, as we saw, deliver the ball like for the Betto's goal. Was that the second one? Was it the Betto's second goal?
Yeah,
The first one was a great ball from Tarkowski. Again, who played under Dyche, but I didn't see him really play that ball under Dyche when Betto was on the pitch. And that's just that's not bad coaching. That's just a manager who's got a wider tactical base than what Dyche has, and that's why Moyes has been more successful in the game and been a Premier League manager for 20 odd years, isn't it? Really. So I agree with some of them comments, but largely I think it's just what Moyes brings to the table. The final thing I'd say about the striker thing about not buying one is it if Everton get up until last Saturday, how many goals did our strikers scored in the Premier League this season? What, 5? 4?
Calvert-Lewin got 3, Betto had 1.
Yeah, so we've 4 goals from our strikers in the first 20 odd games of the season. You're not missing much there by not having a striker.
Yeah.
We would get into difficulties if we start conceding goals at the back. That's where but in the last 14 games, that's where we get into difficulties. But from the way Moyes has set up the defence, bringing O'Brien in, Branthwaite come back into form, Mikalenko looking a bit more confident. There's a lot more stability under Moyes from what you've seen and what there was under Dyche. So that's the risk really for me, not whether you've got a striker or not. So I'm happy on that basis that defensively we look pretty sound for the last 14 games of the season, and we got some backup if we need it. So we're not. If you do get into difficulty, it won't be for lack of striker. Like for a striker, it would be if we start struggling at the back.
Yeah,
and we don't. I'd be very surprised if I don't want to be a hostage to fortune here. If a Moyes team all of a sudden starts falling apart at the back.
Yeah.
And from what we've seen so far, if anything, we're strengthening compared to Dyche. So. And I think that's the other angle I'll look at. To be honest with you, I'm quite happy on that basis with the transfer window.
Yeah, well, for this weekend at least, Premier League takes a back seat. It's the FA Cup, Joe. First comment we had on today from Ian Clark was, we're on the march of Moyes' army, we're all going to Wembley. I mean, you've mentioned a couple of times that you were probably the first one to go with this one.
No, not the first, the only one to go on with this.
To be fair to Joe, pre-season predictions, a different regime back then, and he stuck his neck out, and he's called this one from the start.
We're only at the 4th round stage, aren't we?
Well,
Yeah.
And then tomorrow will be really tough, but
Yeah.
it'd be really nice to see, wouldn't it? Just have a little bit of a cup run. And it feels like the stage has been set for one, really, I think, because, again, I know we have to caveat everything that we say about the Premier League with the fact that Everton could still run into difficulties. It is a weak squad, a fragile squad, and a couple more injuries or a bit of bad run of form could derail things. But I think when I was speaking to Moyes a couple of weeks ago, I think this was after Spurs, I think he was kind of saying 4 or 5 more wins, and that's probably going to be enough. You'd think.
Easy, yeah.
And they've already got 2 of them, haven't they?
Yeah.
So, all of a sudden, and Goodison just feels so different. How different did the place feel the other day?
Totally.
So it just feels like having had to put up with so much trauma for the past few years, wouldn't it just be nice and fitting to end this season and Goodison with a bit of a cup run? Be nice, obviously, to go all the way and win it. Obviously, 40 years from 85, 30 from 95. Coleman still there, Moyes back. I mean, there are so many storylines there. We could have some fun, couldn't we, if Everton got deep into this competition, which, there's still a long way to go. I think Bournemouth will be a really difficult game, but I guess part of it depends. Bournemouth is still a side with a lot of injuries, and a lot of it probably depends on where they see their ambitions this season. Because if I was Iraola right now, I'd be saying, well, on the day Bournemouth has shown they can beat pretty much anybody over 90 minutes in the Premier League. Mm-hmm. For me, being a traditionalist, I'd be like, this is the season you go for a cup. They've got no problems. They've got no worries in the league about safety or anything like that. Go and get a crown and achievement. But I think the way that the modern game works these days, that the target is European football, so you can try and sustain yourselves up at the top end of the table, isn't it? And all of a sudden, 4th, 5th, 6th becomes a bigger honour than winning a trophy, which I think is rubbish, really. I mean, I get it, but like, you want to win trophies, don't you? So, I mean, I'd be interested to see how they approach it tomorrow, and obviously if they go full strength, then they probably start as favourites. But it's a game that with Goodison behind them, with the form and the momentum they currently have, the feel-good factor, Everton, it's very winnable for Everton. And there are a lot of, there are a few of what we would say would be the favourites at the start of the competition are already out. There's a few all Football League games in the 4th round. You could see a scenario where it doesn't take that much to see a scenario where a relatively straightforward pathway to the semis opens up, does it? It will open up for someone.
Yeah.
It might not. I mean, you look at probably end up with City away or Chelsea or something like that, and it becomes difficult knowing Everton's luck. But why can't Everton be the ones that just get that nice little passage through, and we get something to really, really get us going in the final few months of Goodison.
Like Coventry got to the semi-final last
Exactly,
year.
that's it. There will be somebody will fluke is the wrong way, but someone will get a nice pathway through to the semis and maybe the final. Why can't that be Everton? And for once, unlike the last few seasons, why can't Everton be the ones to actually take advantage if that does come their way?
Yeah. This is team talk stuff from Joe, isn't it? Really? You should get yourself in the dressing room tomorrow, But I heard somebody talk about by the law of averages. You should, should happen, please. And Moyes had turned around the last time he managed Everton at Chelsea in the FA Cup. He won, didn't he, in 2011? So, and he's got a good record at City with Everton, albeit a slightly different City team. But I suppose I totally agree about the Bournemouth, how they play it. Interesting to see how Moyes plays it up. Bear in mind the derby is on Wednesday, and we said about prioritising. Needing to win 3 or 4 games. Does he think well, the derby's going to be difficult whether whatever team are put out actually and I think sometimes English coaches look a bit different at the FA Cup than what I know the British coaches than people from abroad. Be interesting to see how he approaches it really, whether he puts a full team out, which he's tended to do in the past, to be fair, in the FA Cup, and knowing that he was talking last week, wasn't he, about the power of Goodison Park and stuff like that. I
also think as well, like that, he's tuned into the wider context. Like this, if Everton were to lose tomorrow, it would be their last ever cup game at Goodison Park, wouldn't he? And I think that he is probably someone that will be aware of that, and obviously Everton could play at their very best and still go out tomorrow. But no one, I don't think nobody with any affinity with Everton, and Moyes is somebody who obviously has a strong one with the club, is going to be sitting there thinking, oh, we'll accept a limp, sorry defeat that we've kind of almost created through our own decision making. If he puts a strong side out and they just don't turn up, then that's just one of them things. But
if we can see, I mean, I very rarely did that. He did it at Derby, didn't he? Before we played Sunderland 2012, we got beat 3-0. And as I say, last week we were talking about the power of Goodison and getting, so no worse way of deflating the power than feeling that we can see a week later, isn't it?
Yeah.
So on that basis, I think he'll put a full strength team out, might be one or two modifications, but
also the most powerful thing that Everton have that they could have going into the derby is momentum. Because they haven't got the players really to match what Liverpool can put out on the team, have they? In terms of a consistency basis, needs Goodison to be firing on all cylinders. Needs the players to be doing that. And I mean, if they could go into the back of that with 4 consecutive wins, that's.
No, I agree. It'd be interesting to see what Bournemouth do. I mean, they've got a few injuries, haven't they? I really like Bournemouth. I really like Eddie Howe. I think he's a great coach. I think he'll be, he's shown how football will be played in the post-Pep world. The way he sets his team up, a bit of positional play like Pep wants, but also like a bit of individual creativity, which Pep doesn't allow really, with to play on the hoof a little bit. And he's obviously he's been influenced by Bielsa because he played for Bielsa at Bilbao. You can see what he's trying to do, take football another step forward from the Pep world, and I like that. For the coach to do that and to show the way forward, and I think his team, I've seen them at be Forest 5-0, 1-4-1 Newcastle with the weekend team, and they were brilliant in both matches. And they would have been unlucky last week against Liverpool. They struck the woodwork twice, didn't they? And I'm really looking forward to it. If they've got a decent team out, watching them play, because I think he plays football. You can see the football of the future, the way he sets his team out, and I think with all due respect to Bournemouth, it might be his last game at Bournemouth at Goodison, I think. And also we've got a few ghosts to exercise, haven't we?
Well, we've got,
we've talked about Bournemouth, haven't we?
That's for sure.
Thankfully, that under a different manager.
Yeah.
So I think we own one, don't we, Bournemouth as well?
A couple, I think. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we got terrible, absolutely woeful record against Bournemouth. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it tomorrow. Both to see Moyes' Everton and to see Bournemouth's.
Yeah.
And Bournemouth's team as well under Areola.
Well, it's something the viewers have been discussing. Joe, Ian Clark says, start the same 11, winning team and all that. Charlie on for half an hour. But Steve Taylor says the league has to be our priority. Cautious over Ghana, Gay and Ghana, both playing 90 minutes with a derby on Wednesday. 4 points in the next 2 league games would be safe. And then there's also comments from Daniel Real and Emery FC both talk about the possibility about resting Tarkowski and Idrissa Gueye, with Daniel saying maybe shift O'Brien to centre half and give Patson a go at right back.
Yeah. I mean, all valid suggestions. That the derby is going to mean a hell of a lot next week, and have a fragile squad, like I just said, and they can't really counter for more injuries, but also because of how thin the squad is, there isn't that much they can do to change it around, is there? So, no, it'd be really interesting to see what he does tomorrow. I hope, and I can understand why he might not do it, but I hope he goes strong. I hope so.
Mm. I mean, Gav, what sort of tweaks? I mean, the ones have been suggested, or there's not a lot he can do.
If you took Garner out, who would you play in the centre mid?
Yeah, it'd be a bit early. I still think it'd be a bit early for Obenham.
So it's not as if you've got if Mangala was knocking about, there's an obvious thing there.
I mean, you could maybe bring Decore deeper and then have either Ilman and Dye or Harrison or Alcaraz in a kind of a central attacking role behind Betto, can you?
Yeah, you can.
That might be an option.
You can put Lindstrom there as well. So I think that there's a couple of but there's not a scream out yet, a like-for-like replacement that will keep to the quality we had last week. I get the O'Brien one. I think it'd be good to see Patson get some game time. And go see O'Brien playing in the centre of defence. Yeah. So there's a couple, but nothing that screams out here. So for that reason alone, we're going to have you know, in terms of our strongest 11, we're going to have as 9 out of our 11 strongest 11 you can put on the pitch at the moment, at least.
Yeah,
I think tomorrow. So yeah, I'd be interesting to see what happens. I presume we'll keep Pickford in goal, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Bournemouth play. I think they're really good.
all right. Terry Dactyl's feeling confident. He says rest players when we're 4 up after 50 minutes.
Yeah, that's it. Get the game won and then make the changes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, you would have said the same thing about Leicester last week. I know Leicester is different to Bournemouth, but that, the funny thing is Bournemouth held the record for the quickest goal to Goodison, before last Saturday as well.
Okay.
So there you
Well,
go.
start just
11
bit by
seconds.
bit, getting back at them.
Yeah, 11 seconds. So we broke that by a second last week. So there you go.
Yeah. Just before get to predictions time and wrap things up, Joe, in terms of off the field stuff, the new stadium's moving at a pace. We're looking forward to that first game there now. I mean, I did a piece today about obviously the pitch markings are on there now and the goalposts have gone up, and you mentioned about the incredible stuff with the Everton way, and the fact there's now over 36,000 of those sold out, expanded. I mean, just shows you the appetite for the new stadium.
Yeah, huge demand, isn't it? I think we all knew that they were going to be popular when they came, the personalised bricks, and it was a nice touch from the club. It was an obvious touch to make as well, and obviously a good opportunity to make money. Must admit, I think I did the story last week, or not last week, middle of last month when he started laying them, saying that more than 30,000 had been sold, and I was blown away by that number. I didn't really think it. Yeah, that's obviously a huge number, isn't it? Yeah, now they've sold out, so 36,000. That's almost the equivalent of every single person inside a full Goodison having one. So I mean that's nice to see. They're going to line the south stand, the way in front of the south stand, and I think that would just be a really nice feature for everyone. I think I hope everybody that wanted one or thought they might want one's got one. I've got a couple.
Oh,
I haven't got one.
Me and Gav haven't shelled out.
Missed opportunity, but there you go.
There you go. Joe's got them all.
So, I haven't quite got 36,000.
Yeah. He's got FA Cup winners 2025. There's a bit next to it.
Like those bad tattoos that people get.
There's a few generations there that are going to be represented on the banks of the Mersey, so that's nice. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was hitting to that earlier. I mean, you've done a piece about Kevin Felwell today, Joe. I mean, so he's come to the last transfer window of his current contract, so either way, they're something of a crossroads now in terms of what the Free King Group wants to do and what Kevin Felwell wants to do, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think Kevin Felwell wants to stay on. Mm-hmm. That was certainly the case a couple of months ago. Obviously, things might have changed since then, but I'd be surprised if it has. I think he probably has the same thought that Deitch had up until the start of this year, where the feeling is that having gone through so much difficult work with the club now, really, they probably see their reward as being there to lead them into the new stadium and the bright new future that Everton should be about to embark on. I think the most obvious thing, when it comes to discussing Felwell, is the fact that I think we all would probably agree that whatever the decision is going to be of the Free King Group is one that needs to be made quickly. Everton have a huge opportunity to rebuild in the summer. That work really needs to start as soon as possible. And whoever's going to be in charge to lead it, obviously we know that we now have the clarity over who's going to be in the dugout with David Moyes. So really, whoever Moyes is going to be working with to put that first team of Bramley-Moore together, that needs to be a decision that's made as soon as possible, whichever way they choose to go. I think Felwell's a figure that I think divides opinion amongst the fan base. But I think that whatever you do when you try and judge him and the role that he's had, and look, there have been a few misses in the transfer market, and they've been very difficult seasons. I know people. I know those who are critical of him will be sick of hearing this, but you just have to look at the context within which he's been working. This is a figure who, for the large part of all the directors of football that they had under Farhad Mashiri, he's the one that's had to answer for the mistakes of the previous regimes. He's the one that hasn't had the millions to spend that the others have had. And he's had to deal with the consequences of them, and he's had to answer for them. He's had to try and build and maintain a side that can stay in the Premier League. We can probably have a good argument about, obviously we know Everton stayed in the Premier League, but did it get closer than it needed to be? Maybe, perhaps it did, but they are still there. and they are still there despite all the things that have been thrown at them, deductions and everything else. You look at the transfer spend. Everton have only spent more than they brought in one of those 6 windows under him. And that was the summer when they sold Richarlison and they brought in Amadou Onana, who, whilst he was the most expensive signing of farewell, they did end up selling him for a healthy profit as well. So, I think it's a really interesting one to try and assess. But the thrust of the piece is the fact that whoever makes the decisions for the summer, they take over in quite a healthy place. The net spend has been, I think Everton, of the teams that have stayed in the Premier League throughout that period that Farewell's been in charge, Everton are the only ones to be positive. I think there's about £140 million difference between them and the next closest, Wolves. You look at the money that has been taken out of that club, transfer budget, player sales, academy sales, the reduction in the wage bill, all to try and obviously accommodate for PSR, which Everton still breached once under his watch, and he inherited the one before then. But obviously the issues were rooted in what came before him. Most of that's gone this summer. Everton have a pretty healthy balance sheet when it comes to the move into the new stadium. Have a bit more wriggle room. I know things like PSR are changing and things like that, but this last window should really be the final one where there is that PSR hangover. And they have the platform to do good things now that they finally have money from the feeding group to be able to spend. So, I think as we go on, hopefully as Everton cement Premier League status this season as early as possible, I think it becomes more and more favourable. The light might become far more favourable on Kevin Farewell, like it probably has been already under Moyes. It's a weird contrast, isn't there? I think probably the biggest impact on the decision will be what his relationship with Moyes and what the discussions between the Freaking Group and Moyes were when he came in. We know that Moyes isn't necessarily a fan of working with directors of football. That's obviously going to colour their decision. But one thing that has been perhaps a bit clearer since Moyes come in is you look at last summer, the transfer window last summer, well, a lot of those players that came in, they weren't getting a kick under Dyche, were they? Or where they were being used out of position. Well, all of a sudden, Lindstrom, O'Brien wasn't trusted to start a Premier League game under Sean Dyche. He's now started 3 consecutive wins and 2 clean sheets and played well within them. Lindstrom looks a bit of a different player. Even Iliman Dyer, I know he was an instant hit really with the fan base, but he looks a different player now. He's been freed up 3 goals in 3 games. So all of a sudden, some of that business looks a little bit better than it previously did. And we've already spoken about this player already today, but how Betto does will probably be a really interesting one as well, because now Betto will get that chance to show us whether or not he was a misfire or whether actually there is a player there that can have an impact in the Premier League. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think we're better because people cite the feed, don't they? And throw it at Farewell. And I sort of get that. The fever for Betto is because of the way the deal he wanted was structured, where, delay payments and paying off no fronts and stuff like that. That inflated the deal overall because, if they're selling Betto, said, well, okay, what's in it for us? If you want to delay payments to us, we want more money than is market value. That's what we want. So Betto's not a £26 million player, but under the deal that Everton wanted to put in place, because we had no money, we were forced to pay more than his market value. We're not saying to the club we think he's a 26. We're selling him. He's a £26 million player. He quite clearly isn't. But under the structure of the deal, that's what we were forced to pay because the selling club wanted something for compensation. So I do agree that some of the players that Dyche had look better under Moyes, which therefore makes Farewell look better. I'm just wondering, do you think the Freaking Group would have a conversation with Moyes about the director of football?
I think it probably would have been one of the main things they discussed when
they
brought in. Because,
about the choice of the director of football. Because is he the most powerful man at the club at the moment, Moyes? Do you think?
Probably not, because now they have a proper board in place. So you would say people like Mark.
Sean Dyche, position of strength, I'd say.
Yeah, he's got a big position
Sean
of strength.
Dyche was the most powerful man at the club for most of his tenure.
Absolutely.
But Moyes is. I mean, as I say, I think this probably would have been something that would have been discussed when Moyes was in talks with the Freaking Group, and clearly, by giving him a 2.5-year deal at a time when so many other areas are up for grabs and on contracts are expiring. It's clear that the Freaking Group have lumped, they've lumped their bet, they've lumped everything on Moyes, haven't they? So that the natural follow-on from that will be Moyes' views on how the club is run going forward will be heavily dictated, because they wouldn't give him 2.5 years if there was an argument still to be had, now about how the club is going to be run. Those assurances would be given at the time.
Where I'm coming from on that one, it's not whether they should have a director of football, it's like who it is. Mm-hmm. I think is whether David, can you work with Thelwell? Do you want him? Or, and he might go, well, I'm not sure about that. And says, okay, there's other directors of football. Would he work for you? That type of thing. And it'd just be interesting to see what those conversations are behind closed doors. I think Thelwell probably looks to have done a far better job now than what he did under Dyche, doesn't he?
Which is itself an interesting one, because obviously, what's saying there about Dyche, felt like he was the most powerful man at the club for a period. Even if those summer signings were good signings and it was Dyche who was holding them back, that still falls. So some of that responsibility still falls on Thelwell for either signing players that the manager wasn't going to use, or he didn't think the manager might use, or for not being able to, make is a bit strong, but not being able to influence the manager who's beneath him in the pecking order for being able to use them. So that dynamic does also kind of colour conversations. But then on the flip side, we speak about the healthy position the club is in for a rebuild in the summer. I think one thing that is also worth acknowledging is, whilst there'll be a huge turnover of players, I think 15 of the current players that are contracted to the senior squad will leave the club. The players who remain contracted beyond the summer, there's a pretty strong, healthy, young, promising core of players. It's not like in previous years. Most of the people that will leave the club are ones with question marks over whether or not they're going to be, you'd want them to be part of Everton's future. The basis upon which Moyes will have to build in the summer will still consist of, Jordan Pickford in goal. He'll still have Jared Brantwaite. Obviously, it'll be interesting. He'll have Brantwaite, he'll have O'Brien, he'll have Tarkowski under contract. He'll have James Garner in the middle, have Illumin and Dye, and a few others around them. So, there is the basis there for something to be built on. Breuer, Lindstrom, and now Alcaraz, they all have a lot to do to justify the money that Everton would have to pay to make them permanent. Yeah. But Everton have the option there if they show something in the coming months, they will be Everton players if they want them, if they look good enough. So that is all promising as well, I think.
Cavalier's another one you throw into there, isn't it? Really, which is a separate pod in itself. I mean, I don't think it's that. There's another podcast. Don't think it's necessarily a given, is it, that all those players would leave you. I think I had Moyes say, or somebody told me Moyes had said that actually. There's a few players on there that list that he'd be quite keen to say.
But the important thing now is Everton have the choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which they haven't had the choice for a long time.
And the extra revenue for probably more kicks in next year and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. That triangle of director of football, the board, and Moyes, how that plays out over the summer.
Yeah, that's right. Before I go, prediction is response to what you've both been saying there. Ian Clark says Moyes very capable of doing it all for a bit and then moving upstairs. And he also says he would love Carsley and Weir to come in and rejoin the band. But then Terry Dactyl says, don't think Moyes wants to do it all. He said all that. He's cracking on age-wise. So,
they should be on the pod themselves.
Yeah, they got their own little pod going on in response to what you're saying. So, lots of contrasting views.
Great.
We welcome them all. Just going back to the Everton way as well. Emery FC says, I got one in memory of my dad who died in March. So there's a lot of that as well. Loved
fantastic.
Ones to remember as well as the future. So in terms of Saturday predictions time, I'll go first. I'll stick my neck out then. I'm going to be positive. I'm going to say Everton, one of those many ones that they owe to Bournemouth. Gav, I'm going to say 2-1 to Everton. I'm going to go. Joe?
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-1 as well.
Yeah.
2-0, clean sheet for Everton.
Emphatic.
But some will be decent what team Bournemouth put out and what their attitude is. So it should be a good game, actually. Yeah, really interesting. And it's only one-off game as well, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
To remember, there's no replay, so that'll be different. Anymore. It's the first time it's happened that in the first game of Goodson where it'll be over on the
on the day. Got to be settled on the day. And just as a reminder as well, we've had lots of positive feedback about this latest episode of Goodison Park, My Home. Alan Stubbs thought both Ian and I thought he took it to whole different level. I mean, it's a cosy chat like they all are, and they all should be. But in terms of the stuff on his health as well, a real important message for everyone for that one. It was a really illuminating conversation and very candid on his relationship with David Moyes and how David Moyes has evolved. So we've got that one on YouTube as well, and to listen to on Spotify and Apple as well. So wherever you want to get that one, Alan Stubbs, coming thick and fast before we finish. So then send us a 5-star review. All positive feedback welcomed. Joe's off to Finch Farm now, going to speak to Mr. Moyes. So better let him go. I've been your host, Chris Beesley, been joined by Gav Buckland, Joe Thomas. This has been the Royal Blue Podcast.